Four Proud Boys leaders have been found guilty by a jury of seditious conspiracy in a major case that the Justice Department brought after January 6th. Those include Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, who was not in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. So that makes him very unique among many of the January 6th defendants. But the jury has found that the government proved that these men wanted to overthrow the U.S. government or hinder it somehow by force. The jury has also found that the other three men are guilty of additional charges, other conspiracy charges. There is one person on trial, though, a man named Dominic Pizzola. He is well known for many photos. He was breaking a window, seen breaking a window at the Capitol, and was accused of using a riot shield to break that window. There haven't been verdicts read about Dominic Pizzola at this time, but the four men convicted, the four men found guilty by the jury today, Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, as well as Zachary Rehl, Joseph Biggs, Ethan Nordine. Those are the leaders of this group, and the Justice Department is accusing them of planning, coming together, and then moving on January 6th in a way that essentially, in the prosecutor's words, was trying to start a war in the United States.
Wow, that is a really important verdict. You said four people, and that includes the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, who has stepped down, but he wasn't there. So this is quite significant to see this verdict come out.
I think it's historic, we can say. Joining us now, CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller. John, we're going to learn more in the next couple minutes about exactly who is convicted of which charge here. But the big picture here is there have been convictions on seditious conspiracy for the Proud Boys. Talk to me about the significance of that, about what this means for domestic extremism in this country.
Well, this follows the case of the Oath Keepers, where you saw similar verdicts against another group that organized and showed up in a coordinated fashion on January 6th. So this is sending the signal that there are serious consequences to domestic groups that decide to interfere with the workings of democracy. That's the big signal. I think the extension of that question is what happens to groups like the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys? Do they survive this? Do they go away? Do they gain strength from it, from people who want to be part of this resistance? The Proud Boys has an interesting history in that it was started as a joke by Gavin McInnes as kind of a satire of male chauvinism and patriotism, and then got away from him when they started actually having fights with Antifa groups. A number of Proud Boys were arrested when I was in the NYPD Intelligence Bureau for attacking Antifa protesters outside a Republican club. They were convicted. They faced jail time. That was when Gavin McInnes distanced himself from the group, when the group found new leadership that took it from being a satire to being kind of an alt-right fight club, the white version. And, you know, in Washington, just days before January 6th, in a December rally, they ended up in a fight with suspected Antifa people on the street. Enrique Tarrio was arrested for possession of a knife and magazines containing ammunition, which is why he wasn't there on January 6th. He was in a hotel room in Baltimore. So you've seen this group morph, but also grow into a national organization. Canada has listed it as a domestic terrorist group.
Oh, that's interesting. You also, as you're describing kind of how it almost started, is also almost how the defense team tried to present their case in court. Kind of, I think the way they had tried to present it at times was a glorified drinking club. And also, I thought it important, as we have seen in other prosecutions related to January 6th, tried to put this on the feet of Donald Trump, saying that was not these guys, it was Donald Trump. In closing arguments, I think it was Enrique Tarrio's attorney said that Tarrio is a scapegoat for Donald Trump and those in power, and that's what DOJ was trying to do. That turn in all of this, and how, when it comes to the defense teams and how they've tried to turn this and say, no, this really was on Donald Trump, and all of these people are scapegoats because of it, is an interesting twist.
Kate, that is interesting, because go back to the Oath Keepers trial, and the Oath Keeper isn't kind of the running joke that the Proud Boys were. These are former military former law enforcement, people with training. That's how they had that bearing with their tactical gear and communication systems. But the Proud Boys, were on the receiving end of, that message from Donald Trump, stand back and stand by.
Right.
Stand by for what? And after the message that he gave about protesters should come to Washington, that went out on December 19th. We're going to have a wild protest. The Proud Boys formed a subgroup called the Ministry of Defense, and Enrico Tarrio was the head of that. They were looking for tough guys. They were looking for fighters. They set up an encrypted chat app. And all of this is kind of the evidence that was promoted that was brought forward at trial by the prosecution to say there was organization behind this, there was premeditation, there was a system.
And that is why Enrique Tarrio is one of the 4 found guilty in this, because it was about the planning, not necessarily about the execution. There were other charges for that. I want to go back out to Caitlin Polantz, who is outside the court with more details for us now. Caitlin?
Sarah, I'm getting a live readout of what the jury is reading in the courtroom, the verdicts that they have come to, and they actually have reached a verdict on many of the counts, maybe just 1 or 2 they have not reached a verdict on. We're still waiting because they're still reading, but all 5 Proud Boys who are on trial, who have been on trial for several months, have been found guilty by this jury on various charges. There are some charges where some of the leaders have been found not guilty, specifically related to assaulting officers, but all 5 men, there have been convictions that are being secured by the Justice Department right now. First and foremost, seditious conspiracy, 4 of these men: Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, Zachary Real, Joseph Biggs, Ethan Nordine. All 4 of those men are found guilty of seditious conspiracy, a plot potentially to overthrow the government on January 6th after the 2020 election. And I was just looking back at what we have learned from this trial. And one of the things, I wanted to read one of the things that the prosecutor had argued to the jury, and the jury clearly agreed with after listening to all of this evidence, seeing video, seeing audio, seeing text messages between these men. This was an issue where the Capitol was the focus from the start. The prosecutor said they were there to threaten and, if necessary, use force to stop the certification of the election. And when Capitol Police officers were testifying and when their audio recordings were playing in court, when they were calling for backup on the Capitol as the Proud Boys and others were entering into the Capitol, breaking windows, hurting barriers of the police, the prosecutor said that those radio calls are the sound of a 200-year tradition of the peaceful transfer of power being shattered. So really a substantial verdict for the Justice Department and quite a historic moment in bringing to justice men who took part and were interested in the violence on January 6th.
All right, Caitlin, we'll let you listen more. Fill us in when you get more information. Meanwhile, John Miller is literally right next to me working his sources as we speak. In the meantime, I want to go to CNN Justice correspondent Evan Perez in Washington. Evan, Elliot Williams, also with us. Surprise appearance from Elliot Williams there, attorney. Evan, I just want to ask you right away, the seditious conspiracy charge, it's an historic charge. It's something that federal prosecutors very much wanted, and they now have convictions. Talk to me about the significance of that effort and the convictions.
Right. It's a very rarely brought charge for the Justice Department. And as a matter of fact, some of the, this case and some of the others, focusing on some of the leading figures that you saw in the violence on January 6th, some of these cases began under the Trump administration, before the new administration took over. And for a while, it appeared there was some doubt inside the Justice Department about whether these cases on seditious conspiracy were going to go forward. In the end, the Attorney General reviewed all the cases, and he made sure he believed that the evidence was there, and that's when they brought these charges. In all, they've targeted a number of Oath Keepers. I think 29 Oath Keepers in all have been prosecuted in these cases. Again, the focus here has been on the people who carried out the violence, the people who you see in all of those videos, and those just harrowing videos from the officers' body cameras showing them attacking police officers for hours. And in the case of these 5 men, the Proud Boys, this is a marquee trial for the Justice Department. Again, we're going to wait to see some of the verdicts that we have not yet gotten details on. But for the Justice Department, getting the seditious conspiracy guilty verdicts on at least 4 of these men is a big deal. Again, it's something that the Justice Department thought long and hard because of the, obviously the political overtones of this. But, you have to look back on January 6th and realize that what the former president and some of these people who thought they were his foot soldiers were trying to do was impede the transfer of power. That's what the Justice Department really emphasized during this trial.
John Miller, sticking here with us. John, you've been working your sources as well. What are you picking up on? What happens to these guys now that we've got these?
Well, you go from these convictions to sentencing. Of course, there'll be a probation report which kind of delves into their lives and, histories and so on. And, their lawyers will argue. But seditious conspiracy, that's a 10-year count. That is serious jail time that they're facing.